Yes, Minister for Education. Motion number 47.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence and that of honorable members, I beg to move that the Education Regulatory Bodies Amendment Bill 2026 be now read a second time. And Mr. Speaker, in doing so, to draw attention to the fact that Act 1023 made charter compulsory for private universities in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, in the past, historically under the erstwhile National Accreditation Board, charter has never been compulsory. It's always been optional. Mr. Speaker, government recognizing the contribution of private tertiary institutions in the country, numbering over 79, have made significant contribution to the provision of higher education in Ghana and quality education across the country. Mr. Speaker, forcing all these institutions to charter, as it appears in the current GTED Act, Act 1023, may lead to the collapse of some 79 private institutions who do not have the capacity to stand on their own, as affirmed by the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. Mr. Speaker, that probably can even increase our current unemployment situation and become a disincentive for Ghanaians who want to contribute to the development of the country by investing in the provision of quality tertiary education at the private level. Mr. Speaker, let me assure this House that, as the President observed in his State of the Nation address, the intent of this is to make charter optional in Ghana. So if an institution subject to mentoring thinks that they have satisfied the requirement and can bid on their own, they may request to be chartered, which will allow them to award their own degrees and diplomas and other related qualifications. Now, Speaker, from institutional and program accreditation undertaken by GTEC, academic audit is a significant part of what GTEC does, in addition to quality assurance layer, which was removed by GTEC. When this charter is reintroduced to ensure the continuous quality assurance of all institutions who may not have chartered. Mr. Speaker, policy approval of programs that has been reserved for only public chartered institutions will now be extended to private institutions to ensure that their program introduced align with government policy objectives. Mr. Speaker, the government of Ghana recognizes private tertiary institutions providers as significant stakeholders and partners in enhancing access to quality higher education in Ghana. The tertiary education landscape in Ghana has significantly transformed over the past 3 decades with dynamic growth of private tertiary institutions. Mr. Speaker, we just didn't arrive at this. There was the Ansar Sari Committee report which made recommendations for us to decharter. And consequently, Mr. Speaker, we sought cabinet approval for the Education Regulatory Bodies Amendment Bill to be presented to Parliament to make charter optional. I so submit and urge honorable colleagues to support this amendment so that we can safeguard the investment that many other Ghanaians have made in the provision of tertiary education by way of private universities and investment in them. There are many Ghanaian students who otherwise, but for this opportunity, will not have been able to taste higher education. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Members, motion heavily moved by the Minister for Education. Is now the time for the Chairman of Education Committee to present the committee's report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in presenting the report of the committee, I want to state that the Minister has outlined many of the issues we want to present, and that I will only take the introduction and then the conclusion, and urge that the House adopts the report of the committee. Mr. Speaker, the object of the bill is to amend the Education Regulatory Bodies Act 2020, Act 1023, to dispense with the requirement of affiliated institutions to meet the 6-year requirement to obtain a charter. Mr. Speaker, the committee in its observations looked at the institutional charter, autonomy and quality assurance, the impending chartering deadline under Act 1023, financial sustainability and institutional viability, the principle of regulatory flexibility, representation of public and private universities on GTech board, and Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the committee, having carefully considered the Education Regulatory Bodies Amendment Bill 2026, is of the view that the proposed amendments strike an appropriate balance between the legitimate interests of the state in ensuring quality tertiary education and the practical realities facing private institutions. The bill preserves the integrity of the regulatory framework while introducing the flexibility necessary for institutional survival and growth. In this regard, the committee recommends to the House to adopt its report and pass the Education Regulatory Bodies Amendment Bill 2026 in accordance with Article 106 of the 1992 Constitution. Respectively submitted, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, motion move. Report of the committee presented. Pursuant to Standing Order 127, a full debate shall arise on the principles of the bill on the basis of the explanatory memorandum and the report of the committee. The floor is now open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When your committee met in considering the amendment to Act 1023, which had imposed a 4-year limit on an institution to be affiliated to a mentor, then additional 2 years within which one has to be chartered. We had the opportunity to meet the owners of private tertiary institutions in the country, and we realized that sometimes some of the students attend such private institutions which is within their proximity, and with the quest that they will obtain a degree or a certificate which is affiliated with one of the traditional long-standing universities like Legon, KNUST, and the rest, and UCC. It's good for you. But many a time they get to finish, and if they have to acquire a certificate of that particular private institution, they don't like it. It will tend to reduce their number of students or the enrollment numbers. And as such, the private owners believe that they are trying to support government to increase the tertiary enrollment ratio, which we call the gross tertiary enrollment ratio. And as such, to support, they will want to remain until a time that they think they are fully ready to be chartered, and also don't want to be burdened with the issue of having to compete within these times for the number of students, because we realize that some of the institutions, some of the public institutions have open campuses with around their location. And Mr. Speaker, the committee realized that the Act 1023 has been 5 years, and we have learned some lessons. And in legislation, you want to legislate to improve on your system. And so we agreed to their request to charter as when and how they want. But also recognizing that we don't want to downplay quality and standards. And as such, the role of GTech will still be enforced. And we will also follow up to make sure that they don't bring down quality in our tertiary education. Mr. Speaker, with this, I believe this amendment is something that we have to support. But more forward, we asked the Ministry of Education that there are other agencies within the Education Regulatory Bodies Act that we also have to amend, especially with reference to the National Teaching Council, where some of the provisions within this act had asked that certain time examinations should be conducted, but now it has been improved or it has been amended. So we ask that going forward, the minister should come so we can have a thorough review of Act 1023 to improve on education in this country. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I support the amendment.
Yes, Honorable Kinsiniako.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for the honor to add my voice to the amendment of Act 1023, 2026. Mr. Speaker, some years back, there was nothing like compulsory charter. When a private tertiary education institution reaches or is ready to obtain a charter, then they go through a process after operating for at least 10 years. Then in 2020, Act 1023 was passed and became mandatory. And there's nowhere in the world where we have mandatory charter. There's nowhere. In fact, in some institutions, they have what we call listed institutions. So the idea to revert to optional chartering is the best way to go. I wanted the opportunity to applaud the Education Committee, the Education Ministry headed by Honorable Haruna Adusu, for taking the bold step to ensure that we give institutions the opportunity of flexibility and not also undermining quality. Quality assurance is an ongoing process. And even though we are going through the optional angle, I would urge the GTEC to ensure that they do their job effectively and upholding the tenets of quality assurance. On that score, Mr. Speaker, I support the bill, and I'm hopeful that we'll do it expeditiously for these institutions to operate within the new arrangement. On that score, I want to thank you for indulging me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, you have the floor, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to also join my colleagues in calling on members to support the call by the minister to support the amendment being proposed to the Education Regulatory Bodies Act 1023. Mr. Speaker, over the years, private universities have played a key role in the development of the nation. Mr. Speaker, private universities have helped to expand access to tertiary education. Mr. Speaker, private universities have contributed significantly to the human capital development of the nation. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, we all know the financial burden that the state carries in an attempt to provide tertiary education, and then private universities come in handy in this regard. Mr. Speaker, with the current act, private universities are given the requirement to, within 6 years after the passage of the act, and the act was passed in 2020, to charter. Mr. Speaker, to charter means that these private universities, even though they are under mentorship, it means that once the 6-year period is due, they are supposed to fulfill certain requirements and be able to now award their own degrees and be fully functional universities. Mr. Speaker, it's been very difficult for some of these universities, and when we met them, Mr. Speaker, the universities expressed serious challenges in meeting some of these requirements. And given that, Mr. Speaker, we only have up to August of this year for all these private universities to be able to meet this requirement, it's obvious that there is a bigger challenge ahead. Mr. Speaker, as legislators, our duty is to make sure that we remove all forms of hurdles and hindrances in the way our institutions function. And so this call to amend the Education Regulatory Bodies Act to provide for optional chartering, so that if an institution decides to charter, then it goes ahead and then gets chartered. And Mr. Speaker, two requirements are needed when you are to charter under the current act: that you need to marshal substantial financial reserves, and two, Mr. Speaker, you need to show proof of the existence of fiscal structures before you can even be granted the license to charter. Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that our private universities are already paying huge fees to their mentor institutions by way of affiliation fees, and so they are going to find it difficult to meet this substantial financial reserve which is required of them. And so, Speaker, I believe that this call for us to amend this act is a call in the right direction. And the last words that were given by the minister to these private universities when we met them was that this measure should not be a way of compromising on the provision of quality tertiary education. And I believe that, Mr. Speaker, the private universities have listened to the minister, and that this amendment will only help to enhance the provision of private tertiary education. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.